Welcome back, everybody, to This Is My Bourbon podcast. I am your host, Perry. I am recording this live on twitch.tv/mybourbonpod, as I have been doing fairly recently. And there's a couple of folks here hanging out with me on this Saturday night. Hope you've had a good week. Hope you are hanging in there. I am very tired, but I needed to get this recorded. Whiskey Sensory Shenanigans is in the chat tonight for the first time on Twitch. Shy Guy is here. Zopher's here. And if you are not signed up on the Twitch channel, once again, twitch.tv/mybourbonpod, you can subscribe over there as well if you haven't done so already. Mike Schneider, who was Whiskey Sensory Shenanigans, said he got tired of watching the 49ers lose, so I thought I'd come over and watch your pretty face. Oh, thank you. What a weird night for football. I was just listening to, or I guess watching one of my streamers, Will Neff, talk about the Broncos and Bills game and what a mess that was in overtime. And I don't want to, just in case Eric the Whiskey Mutant is listening to this podcast episode by chance, I don't want to stir up any. Don't want to stir anything up too much for him. But anyway. We kick off every episode here with a segment known as Flying Blind, where I try something I haven't had in a while, or something I've never had before. And I'm just now realizing that I didn't have anything prepared because I kind of just sat down in a fury of anxiety to get the stream going, and I forgot to grab something. I'll do this. We should drink while watching you. Let me get up and grab something, I guess. I'll do this bottle because this was something that wound up in one of my most disappointing releases for 2025, and I haven't had it in a while. But I, of course, remember it being not so, not necessarily pleasant, but just didn't have a whole lot going on for it. But it is the Bulleit Bottled and Bond that came out last year. This is the very special bottling from the 2017 distillation season. And this is their own distillate that they made. And, of course, 100 proof because it's bottled and bond. So if it came out in 2025 and it was distilled in 2017, that would make it 7 or 8 years old, depending on when they bottled it, I believe, unless I've done my math horribly wrong. Oops. I have too many glasses on my desk, but that's okay. But the reason that I'm pulling out the Bulleit is kind of twofold. One, to make sure that I was right in my assessment of it being as disappointing as it was last year, and two, to see if it has evolved at all. Shy Guy points out that I kind of phrased that particularly oddly. Not the reason I'm pulling out a Bulleit, but the reason I'm pulling out the Bulleit, the bourbon, the bottled and bond. I didn't mean for that to sound, unfortunately. What is this nose? It's really not a good nose. It's like flat, stale banana bread. Old cola, too. Durian, kind of stinky, too. I mean, it's just not, it's not great. It's really not good. Well, can't say that the palate's much better. I'm here's the first thing. First thing, I feel vindicated. I feel vindicated in my most disappointing take. Second thing, I guess I shared this a bunch because I definitely did not drink this much of this bottle. And for the audio listeners, whom I love to death, of course, there is barely any of this. I mean, there is like a sixth of this bottle left, maybe. And I feel like I had to have shared this with a lot of people because I definitely didn't like this enough to be like, oh, I'm just going to keep trying it. I'm just going to keep drinking it. I'm going to make sure that I didn't like this. This is bad. This is real bad. It is very not good bourbon. And I don't know what happened here. I had a pick that Chad, my daily bourbon, did. He had me try it recently, and it was like a 6-year bullet distillate. And maybe it was just that it was a single barrel. Maybe it was just that it was at the proof point where it was 104 instead of 100. And it was spectacular. I mean, it was the first thing that I said, that it was better than, and I went into it with a lot of hesitation too. But the first thing I said was this was better, or it was better than the Bullet Bottle and Bond was that they came out with in 2025. And this is just absolutely not something that I need to be drinking on too much. I'll say that much. But anyway, speaking of my daily bourbon, ran over to go see him at Rare Character the other day. Also, I'm gonna get this crap off of my desk. I don't want to look at it anymore. But as I was saying, I did go hang out with Chad for a little bit the other day at Rare Character, and one of the guys that works there, his name's Dave. He introduced me to a new beer that I never had before. And when I was so a little peek behind the curtain as well for tonight. I was I said this on my regular Thursday night live stream. But we have a sick kid in the house as of recording, and I have not been able to get out of the house as much as I would like to, and so I had to make an order from Liquor Barn to get what I was planning on reviewing initially for this week's episode. And I get a call from Liquor Barn as they're getting my order together, saying that the bottle that I wanted was out of stock. And so they were like, can we get you something else? And I was like, well, I really needed that bottle for what I was going to do. Let me look through the app real quick. And there was a 1792 foolproof, and I was like, well, I guess I'll just pivot and I'll do something else for this episode instead. I haven't done a best way to drink in a minute, so we're going to do that tonight instead with 1792 foolproof. But while I was placing the order, I was like, well, I may as well get some beer because I'm out of like just regular old beer to have around the house when I need something that's not, a stout or something heavier. And so while I was at Rare Character, I got introduced to this beer from Rheingeist called Cincy Light. It's a light lager. And it is just heavy enough to have body, to have a good amount of flavor. It's 4.2% as well, which not bad for a light beer. I'll say that much. And it's fairly cheap, too. Excuse me. One of my favorite parts about this beer, too, It's crushable. Yes, it is from Cincinnati. Cycle between cocktails, whiskey, and beer sometimes. Yeah, I mean, I do the same thing. But also while I was there, Chad grabbed this little old Charter 8-year flask and 80 proof. Don't know exactly when it's from, but he was like, I've got a bunch of these. You can just take that. And I was like, well, all right. If you say so. I'm not going to say no to that. But having to keep it a little bit lighter as well over the week since kid's been sick, needing to take care of her and making sure that I'm alert and aware, of course. What was I about to say? Oh, what I was going to say too is that if you tuned into my Thursday night live stream from this past week, I had a whole like flight planned or a tasting planned of sourced beam barrels and beam barrels that are just from Jim Beam. And as I got into like the second pour, something tasted off on the Knob Creek that I was drinking, and then I was like, well, I'll try another one. And that one tasted off too. And then I just kept trying a couple of other pours, and nothing tasted right. And so I was like, I don't think I should do this flight right now. And it just like nothing tasted right the rest of the night. And I think like, what did I hear recently? That your taste buds, the human taste buds, go through a cycle of like 7 to 10 days. I heard that recently. I don't know if that's entirely true, but I'm wondering if I was at like the tail end of one cycle or something and everything just started tasting like gasoline or ethanol. And it was interesting. It was very strange. So I don't know. I'll redo that flight for another stream sometime in the future. At least not everything tastes like this bullet. Folks, we're doing something a little bit different this week. As I said earlier, another installment of what's the best way to drink a particular bourbon or rye or another whiskey that you might be able to find on a semi-regular basis. And this time, we're taking 1792 Full Proof. Don't put it on the rocks. We got to try it on the rocks. We're going to try it on the rocks. We're going to try it neat. We're going to try it with a splash of water, and we're going to try it with some cola, because that's how we do it here on This Is My Bourbon podcast when we do best way to drink, because it's just a fun way to put it through a bourbon through. I'm throwing my computer. Shy Guy is not happy, for those who are watching or listening to the the edited version of the podcast. Our friend Shy Guy in the Twitch chat is very upset. He does not like that I'm putting it on ice, but it could be that there's something to be found here. So we're going to learn all of this together, as I said. So here's what's going to happen. As I said, neat splash of water on the rocks and with cola or Coke, whatever you want to say. Have to remember where I put the bottle first. Now, here's the thing, of course. It's not always going to be that you have batches. Sometimes, like it is in my case, it's going to be a single barrel. But these single barrels are pretty, they're pretty consistent, at least in quality. let's get to the neat pour. This is, of course, just my base pour for understanding the whiskey itself. This is a really nice color to it, by the way. I'm not entirely sure what the age is on this pick. I could probably find out with a little bit of poking around. Asking some folks I know at Liquor Barn. But, I mean, the color really is nice. It's just one of the things that I love about 1792 Foolproof, just straight out of the gate. It always has this approach of feeling like it's just classic bourbon. Just kind of across the board being, and it might sound a little boring, but heavier oak influence, caramel, vanilla, some chocolate. It's just so solid. Quintessential perfect comfort bourbon, 100%. This one in particular, interestingly enough, while it does still have a lot of those like traditional bourbon flavors on the palate, or excuse me, on the finish, the palate is not quite that. The palate goes more towards like Middle Eastern or Mediterranean spices, which I am all about. Yeah, cinnamon, clove, allspice, kind of that realm, with a hint of dill too. It's got this really intense French vanilla note too, which I'm really enjoying, I gotta say. That's spectacular. That is one of the more unique 1792 Foolproof picks that I've had in general. I've had so much of the 1792, well, I guess Barton sourced mash bill, which I think that one's the 75-21-4 or the 70-21-9, whatever one it is, that I feel like I'm having to reset my palate towards this profile as well. But at the same time, finding a lot of like just comfort in it, I guess. And it's quite nice. It's quite nice to come back to it. So let's move to Splash of Water. And I used about half of that pipette to water it down, I suppose. Immediately, it's tampered down the oak that is on here. I don't think that this is quite towards, at least based on the immediate like neat pour. I don't think that this is towards the double digit age range. I would say it's probably closer to like 7 or 8 years old if I had to guess. But the water has really, really nerfed a lot of the oak, a lot of the more intense, robust flavors on the nose. What it did do was bring out more citrus, brought out more like pine, a lot more caramel, in the way of like very artificial caramel, kind of like a caramel crunch almost. I don't mind it with the splash of water. I'll say that much. But it's definitely... It definitely feels like it's lost some of its luster that it has neat, unfortunately. All right, let's move on to what is surely going to be Shy Guy's favorite pour on a big old ice cube or ball. It's on the rock, I guess. Oh, yes. Table's ready to be flipped, he says. It has made it into a beautiful corn pudding nose. I need some Kentucky straight ice. Yeah, that'd be fun. It needs to be way clearer, you know. I actually really like the nose on this. It's not bad at all. It's sweet. It's still kind of oaky. I mean, it's pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. I don't mind it. Okay, well, the palate's a little rough. Palate's a little rough. I'm not gonna lie. It hurts. It goes like it goes like to the Circus Peanuts note. I'm not feeling so good about this one. That's bad. That is across all of the times that I have done this segment or done this series. This is the worst that On Ice has been. Like, hands down. This is the worst. I have never had one that has been as bad as this. Nose, pretty enjoyable. Really don't mind it. You violated a helpless poor of 1792. All right, brother. Look, this is just how this segment goes. This is this series. Oh, okay. I'll tell you what I think I'm going to do. It's never better. No, it is not. It is just continually falling apart. What I'm going to do so that it doesn't get any worse is I'm going to save this ice ball, drop it into this other glass. Oh, hello. Oh, Lord. And that's the ice that I'm going to use for the cola. And look, you may not know, but now you do, that here on This Is My Bourbon podcast, our cola of choice for What's the Best Way to Drink series is, in fact, RC Cola. RC Cola. Have you had it since you were 7? Probably not. Should you? Highly recommend it. No, I actually really like it. Unsubbed, unfollowed, burning my Perry Ritter books. Yeah, I can't wait to write the book about the podcast in 30 years so that you can burn it then. When I'm 65 and going, you know what? I should really write a book. RC Cola is not a sin. You are wrong. You are completely incorrect. Okay, currently it just smells like a bourbon and cola. So I don't have any further notes. But let's just taste it and see how it is. Well, it's not bad. It's not really doing anything. How did that happen? It's so weird how 1792 has turned into an anomaly. Like, why is it just only so functional, neat? It falls apart a little bit when you add water, disseminates entirely into a nothing pour on the rocks, and then once you put it in Coke, it's hard for it to kind of just show up at all. I'm so confused. This is such a strange best way to drink episode. I've never had one like this before. The cola one is starting to get a little bit more like bourbon pronounced, but not even enough to feel like it's anything more than bourbon flavored. I'm so confused. I'm gonna go back to what was left over from On the Rock that no longer has a rock on it because I did what I did. Weird. Very weird. I'm going to go back to the splash of water here, too, to see if this is actually, like, changed at all. I'm going to have to put the ice ball that I didn't use back in the freezer here in a moment, too. Going back to that feels like I have feels like I've finally leveled up into drinking neat bourbon. And it's not even the like actual foolproof of it all. No. It's just ridiculous. I have never had an episode like this of Best Way to Drink. We're just out of the gate. The answer is neat. Everything else just could not compete with it. I mean, it's just not even close. So, to answer the question, what's the best way to drink 1792 foolproof? Not the 2XO. I don't mean to show the 2XO logo on my Glencairn. It's neat. Neat. You can add some water to it if you need it to, lighten up a little bit. On the Rock just ruins it, and cola is just not doing anything for it. How come drinking straight from the bottle isn't a category? Well, in this instance, drinking it out of a Glencairn is better than drinking it straight from the bottle. I'll say that much. But there you go, Shy Guy. I'm kind of bummed that I didn't have a discovery in here in the way that I did with Old Granddad 114, where finding out that it being mixed with RC Cola was actually quite enjoyable. Wherein this is just kind of like a test to see whether or not I'm drinking it the way that I like it. And the way that I have always been drinking it, neat, is the way that I'm going to continue drinking it. And I mean, let me know too. I'm curious always if when I do these episodes, the best way to drink episodes, if other people try them out for themselves, or anybody who has done Granddad 114 with cola, what's that look like for you? Because I'd be curious to see if anyone's had the same result that I did. But regardless, this was a kind of a dud. One of the first duds with the best way to drink. Actually, might be just hands down the very first dud. Unfortunately, so bummer, man, bummer. I was hoping I'd find something out, and nothing came of it. But it is what it is. So until I do this again, neat still reigns supreme somehow. We don't have any barrel rings this week, but if you want to submit one, you can do so. Send us a text message or a voicemail. 859-428-8253. Listen to it or read it out here on the show. It's a great way to reach us. You can also send anything to social media at My Bourbon Pod or our email, thisismybourbonshop@gmail.com. Bro, you're only 4 followers from 100, so close. It would be great if we hit 100 followers on Twitch. That would be so nice. So I'm gonna leave this in the main episode too. There is a soft chance that we will be moving streaming off of YouTube and onto Twitch altogether. And it seems like, for people to be here on a late Saturday night, bummer, I know, but YouTube has been so bad about supporting live streaming in general. This might be my hyper hot take too. I don't understand why YouTube has just absolutely crapped the bed on supporting live streamed content. And this is not just for those of us who are creating content around alcohol either. It just doesn't seem to care to push notifications or live stream videos to the top of the algorithm in the way that it used to. And so it makes sense for me to move streaming, especially because there is something in the back of my head that is seems to be saying more and more that I should do more live streaming in general, especially when it comes to recording the podcast, because it seems like you guys are happy that I am going live and recording the podcast and there's more engagement with it and everything. But moving it to Twitch because there is higher engagement and there's better, it's a better platform in general for live streaming. And it's not to say that I wouldn't still do YouTube stuff in terms of streaming every once in a blue moon, but I think that Twitch is a better, more stable platform for this. So that's not to say that like the produced content as far as like the podcast would go anywhere, because it's definitely not going to go anywhere. But I'm considering it, and I think that it's just a gentle push for people to say, and it's not like, at least within this community too, people are not willing to hop over to Twitch and check it out. I mean, it's a very easy move, it seems like, for a lot of folks. I'll call barrel rings if you change the ear piercing outgoing message. I will do that. Twitch raids are such a cool feature. I love not just rating people, but also being rated by people. I have friends who are on Twitch who are willing to raid while I'm live. If we are live at the same time, of course. That make it a more vibrant community. And I would just like to see more of the Bourbon folks in general move over here, because I think that we're being pushed off of YouTube in some capacity. So those are my thoughts. Yeah. Anyway, I guess that's my high proof hot take for the week. Tips and bits, though, segment of the show where I'm here regardless. I appreciate you, Shy Guy. And I appreciate everybody who's here on a Saturday night into Sunday morning, watching me record a podcast, and just, talk randomly about stuff and engage with the community, which I think you all enjoy as well. And I always appreciate you all showing up no matter what I do, because that means more than anything to me. But we will figure it out. I'm not, I'm here irregardless. Well, we can split hairs and rabbit season, duck season it to death. But I love you all, and thank you so much for everything. But tips and bits. I'll do that another time. Segment of the show where I recommend things that I have been watching, reading, listening to, enjoying, that I also want you to check out. And of course, the guy who does a podcast is going to recommend a podcast or two from time to time. And let me tell you something. I've got 2 podcasts this week that I am going to recommend that in some way have kind of not necessarily like fed off of each other, but it seems like they're on the same podcast network, right? It's the HeadGum Podcast Network. And they at least are able to work with each other in some capacity. 2 comedians that I love and adore and I think are absolutely hilarious. And 2 comedians that work side by side, and I have been bouncing back and forth through some of their older episodes where they guest on each other's shows. But the first one is the So True podcast with Caleb Heron, which you probably just know from like viral podcast clips. He's insanely funny. And he will show up on Gianmarco Cerezi's podcast, The Downside, which is also hysterical. And they have traded off episodes multiple times. I recommend you go and check out both of their shows. One of the things that I do, and it's something that I try to engage in more and more. And I'm bad about it these days because I get a little too like in my zone, and I'm more honed in on what I do because I want to refine my own craft, right? But one of the things that I forget to do is look towards other podcasters and what they do to boost my own my own craft, to engage people on a level that makes them feel like they're watching a podcast that could be accessible to anybody, right? And that's why I do things like tips and bits. That's why I do high proof hot takes. That's why we try to get people to call in to the show. And, not only make it bourbon focused, but also make it community focused, because that's something that has always been important to me, that even though like the focus is this is my bourbon podcast, the community has always been what has driven this show for me. So all that being said, I never want to lose sight of making this a show that you can drop in on, even though it's called This Is My Bourbon Podcast, and feel like you can listen to it even if you don't know anything about bourbon, and kind of pick it up and understand what's going on. So that's why I listen to shows that are not always bourbon focused, and give them a chance to influence what it is that I do. Like my favorite podcast of all time is The Weekly Planet. It's a comic book and superhero movie show. That's what they do. And they provided a lot of the structural integrity for what Timbip wound up being back in the very early days of this show. So for that matter, I think it's important to not, just find one niche and stick to it. It's important to be aware of what the entire economy looks like around you, in the podcasting sphere or whatever it is, as far as like a content creator. And so that's why, I'm not always engaging in only whiskey or bourbon content. There's a lot of stuff that I watch and listen to. So anyway, that does it for this week's episode. What a weird one. I did just in general feel strange. Patreon, I think you're going to get the rest of whatever the stream is going to be on the back end too, because I'm definitely still going to stay live here for a bit. Thank you all so much, as always, for supporting the show. I just don't know what else to say. I always feel a little like have to express that from time to time. I do this show not just for the sake of making content, but because there are people that continue to listen and support the show, and engage with me and engage with it and support it and tell other people to listen to it. And that's the best way that you can get the show to continue to thrive, I suppose. But if you want to support the show monetarily, you can do so by heading to patreon.com/mybourbonpodcast for as little as $1 a month. For as little as $5 a month, though, there's bonus content every single daggum week, like the bonus episode that comes out on Mondays, pregame chats that come out on Tuesdays, and the uncut, unedited version of the podcast that comes out on Tuesdays as well, before the regular version of the podcast comes out on Wednesdays. So you also kind of get like a an early version of the unedited version while I'm recording it here live on Twitch too. So all sorts of stuff. If you can't make it to the Twitch recording, you can check it out on Patreon. You can follow on all social media channels at My Bourbon Pod. You can also follow me personally at pritter1792. You can send questions or comments to thisismybourbonshop@gmail.com. You can also find all of our apparel and merchandise at bourbonshop.threadless.com. You can, if you would like to, send anything that you might have for me to check out on the show to our P.O. Box. It's P.O. Box 22609, Lexington, Kentucky, 40522. You can also, as I said earlier, leave a barrel ring for the show, 859-428-8253. Every time I say that, I'm like, I really have to make sure I don't say my personal number. Which I'm not going to give out on the show, but I'm also definitely not going to, not going to play out any like voicemails that I get here on the show either. Anyway, 859-428-8253. That's the Barrel Rings number. And then last but not least, leave a 5-star rating and review on your podcast app of choice. We'll read it out here on the show. We appreciate everybody who supports the show that way too. And that does it for this week's episode of the podcast. Next week, I don't know what's happening yet because I never know what's happening on the next week's episode of the podcast. I'll see you real soon. Appreciate everybody. Until next time, though, I'm Perry, and this is my Bourbon Podcast.